alcoholic. I want to say thank you very much to the committee for having me here. Thank you so much for the gift basket in my room. I most certainly gained a few pounds from that. Thank you so much, and it's just been a blessing to be here. Catherine and I have thoroughly enjoyed ourselves, and the speakers have been just unbelievable. I have been really in a place where I needed to hear every single speaker that I heard this weekend. I celebrated 20 years on June the 20th, and on my 20th anniversary I went to my mother's house to tell her and thank her for 20 years of sobriety. And when I went over my mother's struggles with mental illness, and when I went over to share that with her, she had no idea who I was. And her Alzheimer's had kicked in. And I knew that she had this mental illness thing, this dementia going on before, but I really didn't know a lot about the whole Alzheimer's thing. And it really threw me for a loop. And thank God for Alcoholics Anonymous and the men and women in my life who I was able to leave from there and call my sponsor and call people in my life who had that experience with their relatives. And one of the most encouraging things for me is that people were able to share with me that they had been through it. And one of the things people have said to me along the way since June the 20th was, people would say, who have lost their parents would say to me, well, at least your mother's still living. At least you still have her. And I need to tell you that I don't particularly feel that way. That, I left home at a very young age. And I began drinking very young. And I don't believe that my mother from then until now really ever got to know me. And I don't believe that she'll get that chance now. But one of the cool things about my sobriety is that I did get to know my mother. And when I sat down with my sponsor and we talked about my mother and some of the things that my mother shared with me about her life, I got to know some things about her. And I'm really thankful about that. But I have some moments, and I've had those moments today, where I've gotten a little sad. And I will tell you that when I listen to Jerry, and when I listen to Stu, you guys helped me in a huge way. And I'll be forever grateful for that. I'm going to let you know that I'm from Greenville, South Carolina. And back home we lived in a little white house on a red dirt road, and we got our water out of wells. We had an outhouse. I had flaming red hair and freckles, and nobody else in my family did. And my brother told me as he had me locked in the outhouse one day that he said, I know why you look the way you do. And he says, because the mailman is your daddy. So whenever I saw the mailman coming down the street, I'd be like, Daddy! I would run up to the mailman and I would put my arms around him and tell him how much I loved him, being my daddy and all. And he would pat me on the head and tell me how cute I was. And thank God for the big book of alcoholism, Alcoholics Anonymous, and sponsorship and the women I sponsor. I found out that turned out to be a little pattern for me, actually. That if you just put your arms around me and told me how cute I was, we were basically married at that point. And I was always proud of my daddy, the mailman. didn't get to see their daddy, but I saw my daddy every day at 3:30. So I was real pleased that, he showed up the way that he did. And, I'm from a family of Baptist ministers, and, my family had my life pretty much mapped out for them. I've been singing in my great-granddaddy's church since I was 3, and I remember my real daddy actually told me that he pulled me to the side when I was 9 and told me that I was to take care of my voice, that they had told me I had a gift and that I was to take care of my voice, that I was to take care of my entire family so that nobody had to work. And I remember getting on my big wheel and thinking that, I better start now because, this was going to be a difficult task. And we stayed down south for a while. We picked blackberries and we went to church, and life was extremely simple. We ate cornbread, we drank buttermilk, we went to church, I played the tambourines, and life was just really, really simple. And my dad ended up getting a transfer from Greenville to Cincinnati, Ohio, and in the process of traveling back and forth, he got himself a little girlfriend, and he was traveling back and forth. He met her and her ready-made family, and he still moved my mother and my brother and my sister up to Cincinnati. And when we moved to Cincinnati, he decided to move up into this little neighborhood with his girlfriend and her family, and that left my mother to raise my brother and my sister and myself. And you will hear me talk a lot about my mother. My mother, while back home, she cleaned bathrooms for a living, and so when we moved up to the city, my mother made a solemn vow that it was something that we were not going to do for a living. So education was real important to my mother. When we were at home, we could not we couldn't talk anything but proper English. We couldn't use any kind of slang. We could not use the word ain't. We couldn't do anything like that. My mother wanted us to go to Catholic schools. My mother worked as a waitress, and she sent my brother and my sister and myself to private schools. And so now I'm up here in the city. I got a flaming red afro, and now I got a white blouse, a plaid skirt, and black and white Spaldings. And I'm over here with the nuns. And so now I'm a little black Baptist girl at the Catholic school, and and they're sending me to mass every day. And I remember my mother gave us that whole talk. She sat my brother and sister and myself down, and she said, "Now I'm going to tell you something. They're going to send you to church every day. And you're going to see them line up, and they're going to get in line, and when they get up to the priest, they're going to take this little cookie. You do not do that. That is not for you." My brother and sister heard that correctly. What I heard was cookie. What could possibly be wrong with getting a cookie? And I remember the first day of Mass, I lined up with the best of them. And I watched what they did. And this is how I know this whole thing with my thinking started a long time ago. Because I sat there and I watched intently what everybody else did. And something in my mind said, just do as they do. And I remember I got up and I got ready to get in line, and I remember I genuflected and I watched everything they did, and I got in line and I folded my hands like everybody else was doing. And I got in line and I just followed closely, and I saw that they opened their mouth when they got up to the priest. And when I got up to the priest, I opened my mouth like they did. And he kindly put that little thing on my tongue, and I closed my mouth and I walked away just like they did. And I remember I got to chomping down on it. And I remember I just started going, "This ain't no cookie. This don't even have no taste to it. Y'all eat this every day." And I remember Sister Frances Ellen going, "Get over here." And so they had me in the office, and they told my mother that I had, taken the cookie, the body of Christ, and, it just wasn't pretty. And, so just to give you an example of my thinking, my brother and sister stayed, they knew not to. That just wasn't the case with me. You know what I mean? And that's the kind of stuff that I did in school. This one particular day, there was this girl named Squeaky. Squeaky was like 6'10" in the 5th grade. And Squeaky had a little posse that liked to beat people up that was different. And, I had flaming red hair and freckles, and I was going to Catholic school. And, I hadn't seen a person with red hair and freckles until I got to Alcoholics Anonymous. Really. I seen him when I went to the coffee bar. I couldn't believe it. I ran up to him. I was like, where have you been? Give me a hug. You know what I mean? We're related. You know that, don't you? And so Squeaky had beat up people that were different. And, I was on my way home from school, and they started throwing rocks at me. And I ran in the house, and I told my mother, I said, "Whew, I'm glad I made it in the house. Squeaky and her friends were about to kill me." And my mother, whenever she sounded like this, I knew she meant business. She goes, Angela, at some point you're going to have to learn how to stand up for yourself, honey. So what I'm going to need you to do is go back out there and you stand up to Squeaky. I said, "You want me to do what?" And she goes, "You can stay in here and get the butt whooping that I'm going to give you." And I already knew what my mother's felt like, and I only knew what Squeaky's appeared to be. So I went outside and I walked up to Squeaky and I said, "My mother said I'm supposed to fight you." No, that's a lie. I said, "My mother said I'm supposed to fight you." And she said, "Well, come on then." So I already know, now that I'm in AA, about this committee. And the committee was there then. Because I closed my eyes as tight as I could. And this thing started going on in my head. And these people in my head started telling me, "Your brother, when he's boxing, he puts his fingers up like this. So put your fingers up like this. Maybe something will happen as a brother. Taller than just put them up." And then one of them said, "Well, you got to reach up. Because she's tall, so reach up. And your brother bounces like this when he's fighting." So here I am standing in front of this 5'10" Amazon like this. And then somebody in that committee says, "Go ahead, reach up. Just reach to the left. Go ahead now." So I reach up to the left and I get her right here in the eye. It was like the happiest day of my life. I had like hit the giant. But she didn't budge when I hit her. And man, she gave me she beat me down something terrible. And my mom's in the screen door, right? But I got this thing called alcoholism that helps me remember what I should forget and forget what I should remember. And what I remember was that I hit her. The beat down meant nothing to me. Because I'm looking at my mom in the screen door, and the whole time she beat me down, I'm going. So my mom, she waited to see if I was going to do anything else. And she said, "Lord, let me go get my child." And my mother walked over and she threw the big girl off of me. And she taking me in the house by my collar. And I'm looking at my mom the whole time going, "I did it! I did it, Mama!" And she goes, "Get in the house before you die." But in my mind, I had hit the giant. And from that point on, I became a boxer. Anybody that said anything to me. Because I got this thing called alcoholism that helps me remember what I should forget and forget what I should remember. And I hit her, and from that point on, I could fight. Now, I've been beat up all the way up into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. But anytime they could knock me unconscious, but as soon as I came to, I was like, doesn't matter what bar fight I got in, this was the sign. And so my mother had worked at this restaurant, and she had worked as long as she could, and she ended up getting a better job at a factory called Avon. And she moved us to this neighborhood. And so at the age of 12 years old, she came and got me from this Catholic school. And she went and got my brother and sister, and we all went up to this house, and she moved us to this all-white neighborhood. And we were the first African-American family to move into this all-white neighborhood. So from the age of 13 to 20, I wasn't even black no more. I listened to Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band. And the first girl group my favorite girl group was Heart. And the first concert I ever went to, baby, was Led Zeppelin, 1979. And Foreigner was singing Feels Like the First Time. And I remember I looked around that whole Coliseum, and it was like 30,000 white people and me. And I remember thinking, I am bad. It feels like the first time. I had my bandana tied around my head. And you know that the whole craft of this whole hanging out and being the only black girl in the sea full of white people was me convincing you that I was not really black. And that what you really looked at when you saw me was really a white girl. Even though I look exactly like I look today. Nothing had really changed. But just that man wanted to fit in so bad some way. And I hung out with these 5 white girls. And they could basically do whatever they wanted to. Seriously. I was over at my friend Rebecca's house one night. Rebecca's mother comes downstairs. We're down in the basement. And she yells, family meeting. She goes, Rebecca? That's my white woman voice. Rebecca? And I kid you not, she yells it downstairs, and everybody in the basement rises up like a choir. They go directly upstairs. She yells, family meeting. Well, I go right upstairs with them because I've never seen anything of the sort. And Rebecca's mother says, Rebecca, your father and I understand that there's been alcohol consumption. And Rebecca, your father and I have decided that if you're going to drink, we would much rather you drink at home. I said, what did your mother just say? She goes, yeah. She wants us to drink at home because she thinks it would be safer. I was like, what? I thought that was the closest family. I almost wanted to cry. I thought that was the closest family I'd ever met. I remember I went home, I was like, Mama, can I have a beer? And she goes, no. And I'm like, okay, I'm going down to Becky's house. Just don't be late. I won't. And so I started hanging out with Rebecca. And that was my buddy. And I started hanging out. And one night Rebecca comes over to my house and she has a brown bag. 2 bottles in it. She gives me one and she takes one. It's Boone's Farm Apple wine. Really? That's great, you guys. Make sure you get sponsors. I didn't mean to take it back like that. And she said that her brothers had schooled her in the art of chugging. And so we twisted the caps off and we turned those bottles up, and I can tell you what happened to me did not happen to Rebecca. That I turned that bottle up and I drank as long and as hard as I did. And I swallowed and it went down and something hit the bottom of my feet and it rose slowly to the top of my head. And when it got to the top of my head, I made a conscious decision that this was something that I was going to do every opportunity that I got. And that's what I did. I hung out with these girls, we drank, and we partied, and we went to concerts. And that's what we did. We drank and we partied, and we went to concerts. I blacked out from the very beginning. I was a blackout drinker. And I don't mean any disrespect. I smoked a little marijuana, didn't really like it. Seemed like I smoked it and ate everything in everybody's freezer. They had big You know what I mean? Didn't really like that. Did a couple of hallucinogens, and it got me a mental health diagnosis. So couldn't really deal with that too much. And this one particular night I was with my friends, and they had offered me a couple of little pills, and told me to take one, and I took 2, and it was strawberry mescaline. And, I took it, and they decided that they wanted to go to McDonald's. So we went to McDonald's, and right when we pulled in was when, it began to take effect. And, it's probably some young people in the room. Back then, we didn't have digital stuff, We just had a little yellow box with about 6 holes in it when you went to McDonald's. And amazingly, somebody could talk through that thing. And I pulled into that lot and pulled up to that thing, and that mescaline took effect. And that steering wheel turned into about 10 times its size, and the McDonald's arch started to burn so hot on the side of my head that I felt as if there was no hair over here at all. And so I get up to the little yellow box, and there's some little guy in there yelling at me, and what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? And I'm an alcoholic. You attack me, by all means, it's time for me to attack you back. And so I said, no, dude. What do you and your little buddies want with me? And so I'm arguing with him, and but I knew I could whoop him because he was only about this big. I knew that would not be an issue. And so we pull around to the other window, and there's some girl, at the next window with eyelashes like this. She's, asking me for my money, and I froze right then and there with her. And we get to the next window, and dude's visor's like salt or ketchup, salt or ketchup. So they call the police, rightfully so. And I'm qualifying myself here. You know what I mean? We get to the next window, that's going on. He calls the police, and the police come, and the police gets out of the car, and he's walking towards me, and he's just jiggling. I said, oh boy. So he comes up to me and he goes, what? I said, you know what, officer, just go ahead and put the cuffs on me. I can see where this is going on. So then go ahead and take me to jail. And so I get out of there, and I'm hanging out with the same people, and I'm drinking. And my dad and my mother have always tried to help me. They have, and they sent me to, therapists and ministers, and I've been dipped in the river, and, came up drinking, and, what I mean, just, my parents have done everything, and this one particular night I went out, and I was in a blackout, and, ended up talking to my father, and just, telling him that, I just like to drink, and my father sent me to a therapist, and, this is nothing against therapists. I love therapists. I'm working to be one myself. And it was just this particular one. And I was sitting in her office, and she said, Angie, everybody's worried about you. They want to know what do you see, when you look into the world. What is it that you see? And we understand that you have a hard time communicating. And so, I got something maybe that can help you. She reaches down into her drawer, and she comes out with these little sock puppet things. And she says, just put these on. They had like the little jiggly eyes, And she said, just put these on. And I put them on, and I said, you want to know what I see? And she goes, yeah, everybody's concerned about you, Angie. What's happened? Everybody wants to know what's happened to you. What do you see when you look out? What do you see when you go outside? And I said, well, I can tell you what I see. And she goes, I want to know. And I said, I see a little silhouette. Scaramouche, would you do the fandango? Thunderbolt lightning, very, very frightening me. Galileo, 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 magnifico, magnifico. I ain't just a poor girl, nobody loves me. She's just a poor girl from... She goes, I'll be right back. singing, and he goes, "This is why we can't get you no help." I was like, "Daddy." He goes, "Oh, okay." All righty then, I understand. So my parents tried to give me some help. They really truly did. They worked hard and they saw that there was something clearly wrong. Like I said, I'm from a family of religious people. They did everything that they could to help me. And they knew that what they were working with was much stronger than anything that they could do. And like I said, they took me back home. They had revivals. They had every minister in our town there to help me. They dipped me in the river. They brought me back up. They had people lay hands on me. The whole shebang. And nothing worked. And so I go on my journey, and my dad decides, well, maybe let's try to get her a little work. Let's see if we can get her some help there. Because, see, I started going to school, but I couldn't do anything in school. Because the only thing that I worked hard to do was drink. I never stayed in school a full day. Because I found people just like me. And I left school, and I went and I partied. I went and I drank. So by the time I reached Alcoholics Anonymous, by the time I came to AA, I couldn't even read. So my dad decides to give me a job at a recording studio. So I meet, and if you're an artist like I am, surely the day is going to come when somebody is just going to discover me. They're just going to discover me. I'm not even going to be singing. In my mind, I'm just going to be sitting somewhere. And some dude's just going to walk up to me and go, "Do you sing?" "Why, my name's Bob from Epic Records, and I just happen to have a contract here." You know what I mean? That's the way I saw it. And I'm at this recording studio, and I'm in the bathroom, and I hit my best Whitney Houston note. And I come out, there's this beautiful tall brother standing there in a suit. And he goes, "Was that you singing?" And I said, "Well, yeah, as a matter of fact, it was." He goes, "I can make you famous." "Really?" "Yeah, all you got to do is come to Las Vegas with me, and you're in." "No problem." So I go home and I call a family meeting. And when they all get together, I say, "I will be back for you. As soon as I get my first Grammy, I'll be back for you, and never again will we have to live in poverty." And my mother goes, "We don't live in poverty." "Well, I will be back for you." And my dad's going, "Angie, don't do this." And my mom's going. And my little sister's going, "Angie, please don't go." And my brother's going, "Don't go." But see, I had to go because he said the key words. What he said was, "I can do for you what you cannot do for yourself." That was the story of my life. I'll go with you and you do it. And if it fails, it'll be your fault. It's been that way all my life. I've never really tried or attempted to do anything. But if you said you could do it, I'll let you do it. So if it fails, it'll be on you. So I go out with this gentleman, a young girl, in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I'm here to tell you that I was a young girl having the time of my life. Opening up for people, making a lot of money, and alcohol was flowing freely. And about this time, blackouts were really kicking in. And I'm sure it doesn't happen here in Tampa, but I began to drink on a regular basis, and I began waking up next to people that I didn't know. I'm sure it doesn't happen here. And I began waking up next to people that I didn't know. Waking up next to people where both of us woke up and went, "Damn!" And he had one tooth and it was gold. And I figured surely he had some money. At least one. The one he had was gold. And he said his name was Zed. And he said, "You told me you loved me last night." And I was like, "Did I? I told you I loved you, Zed." It was the alcohol, I'm sure. And I began drinking, and the same thing was happening. And then I began drinking, and I'm keeping up drinking, and now I'm drinking, and I'm crying on stage. And I'm keeping up drinking, and I'm drinking, and now I'm singing, and I'm drinking, and my shirt's coming off on stage. Maybe legal now, wasn't legal then. And I'm drinking and I'm crying. And I'm crying and I'm drinking. And they're saying, you know what, Angie? Why don't you just, don't drink whiskey. Angie, just drink beer. Don't have 3. Why don't you just have 1, maybe 1.5. But just don't drink the way you drink. And you can keep on working, but if you keep drinking the way you drink, you can't keep coming in these casinos doing this stuff. And I started getting blacklisted out of casinos. While in the meantime, this man that I went with, this so-called man, this man/pimp, began to tell me, because I'm starting to lose jobs, somebody got to make money. So he tells me he's going to show me the ropes. So he takes me on a street called Fremont in Las Vegas and introduced me to one of the biggest, tallest prostitutes I'd ever seen in my life. And told me that he wanted me to watch her. She's going to show me what to do. And every opportunity I got, I was running somewhere trying to get a drink and running back out and watching her. And I said, let me see if I understand you correctly. So you go do this, and then you take your money and you turn it over to somebody else. No, I don't think that's going to work for me. Yeah, now I'll work to drink, but I'm not going to work to turn it over to somebody else. So that wasn't going to be good. So I'm still hanging out with him. He's still doing his little thing. We're drinking. He's got his own problems. And we go from having everything to having nothing. We're living in this seedy hotel. One day he comes and gets me and says he needs me to drive him to the store. And I drive him to the store, and when I drive him to the store, he goes in and he robs the place. And he shoots and he kills the owner. And when he comes back out to the car with blood all over him, he gets in the car and he says, go, and that's what I did. And a few short blocks away, the next thing I know is I'm laying on the ground with guns to my head. Now, I don't know about you, but when I took that drink with my friend Rebecca at 13, that is not what I had planned. That is not what I had planned. When I said that I wanted him to go to Las Vegas and make me famous, that is not what I had planned. And I'm here to tell you right now that this gentleman, as I speak, is still in a Nevada prison. And here I am in Tampa, Florida, speaking at an AA function. You know why I'm here and why he's there? I know why I'm here. Because there is one who has all power. And that one is God. Now, I will tell you that I got a floater out of the state of Nevada from the governor that said I cannot come back for any reason to Nevada. No problem. No problem. And I left Nevada and I came back to Cincinnati, and guess what I said when I left Nevada? That's it. No more drinking for me. And I got back to Cincinnati, and one day my brother and sister and myself were all on the bus, riding a city bus, all over the place. We get down to the corner of Liberty and Vine in Cincinnati. We look over at this restaurant. There's Lincolns and Cadillacs and pimps and prostitutes. My little sister looks over there and she goes, boy, you couldn't pay me to go over there. My brother looked over there and he said, shoot, me neither. And I looked over there and I said, shoot, I'm going over there tomorrow. And that's the difference between me and my brother and my sister's thinking. And I started riding the number 20 bus all the way downtown just to go over there and see what they were doing. It was lit up. And I started hanging out. And in 2 weeks, I was drinking again. Because I had no idea that left to my own devices, I couldn't even make the decision to not drink again. I was clueless to that fact. So I started drinking again. I'm hanging out downtown. I'm drinking in the worst of bars. I met my friends, my buddies, my drinking buddies. I'm hanging out with them. I'm drinking wine. I meet this guy named Greasy Feet. My friend No Neck and Tie Dye. And they taught me how to go in department stores and steal merchandise. by wrapping it up and sticking it down in a girdle and walking out. And I thought they were brilliant until I got arrested. And I ended up getting arrested. And I went to jail, and I took a physical, and I found out I was pregnant. And I found out I'm pregnant, and I go to court, and I get sentenced to the Ohio Reformatory for Women. So I'm on my way to the Ohio Reformatory for Women, and I'm pregnant. And 9 months later, the warden comes to me and he tells me that I have to find a place for my baby to go, or that he would become a ward of the state. So by this time, my parents had kicked me to the curb because I'm hanging out downtown, drinking. I'm not coming back home. So I called my mother and I told her, I said, I need you to come to the penitentiary and pick up my baby. And my mother said, Angie, you have a baby? And I said, yes, ma'am. And I need you to come and get it. And my mother and my father came to the Ohio Reformatory for Women and picked up my son. And when they came to pick him up, they didn't stop to see me. They came and they got their grandbaby. And they left that penitentiary, and I watched my son leave the penitentiary through a slit this big. And all the way, that when I was watching him leave off that farm, I said to myself, I'm going to get my act together, and I meant that from the bottom of my heart. I said, I'm going to get my act together, and I'm going to be a good mother. And I meant that. When I got my freedom, my son was 4 years old. All the way down 71 South. All I could think of was my baby. Getting him and holding his hand. And playing with him and being with him. And wrapping my arms around him and telling him how much I love him. I couldn't wait. And I got to the Greyhound bus station, and suddenly the thought crossed my mind. It said more about alcoholism. He said suddenly the thought crossed his mind that he could put a little whiskey in his milk. He sensed he wasn't being a bit too smart. Suddenly the thought crossed my mind that surely one drink won't hurt me. I've been locked up. Surely one won't hurt me. And I went to that bar with the sole intention of having one drink and getting on that bus and going to see my child. And I took that drink, and it would be years before I saw my kid again. I'm an alcoholic. When I put alcohol in my system, I can't tell you what I would do. I like to think I can, but I can't. And I couldn't call home. Heck, it had me baffled. It had me baffled. As much as I wanted to show up, I couldn't show up. And here I love my baby. That's all I thought about. All the years I was in prison, man. That's all I thought about was getting to my son and putting my arms around him and telling him how much I love him. And I go down to that bus station, and in a split second, man, all I want to do is just go get a drink and get home to him, and I can't do that. And then after I take that drink, I can't figure out how to get off that damn block, man. And then I'm too scared to call home because I ain't got a reasonable explanation as to what I'm doing. If you got parents like mine, you better not call without a reasonable explanation. So I couldn't call. So I just did. I ended up getting in trouble. Being drunk. I ended up pregnant again. And I'm going to tell you something. God has always put angels in my way. I met this white couple. I was pregnant with my daughter. And they saw that I was struggling with drinking. And Tom and Elizabeth said, look, Angie, we're opening up a restaurant in Bloomington, Indiana. Why don't you come with us? And I said, I'm going to get my daughter up for adoption. I said, in that way I can start new. So I went over to Bloomington, Indiana with them. And when I went into labor, and I need to tell you that I had not one single day of prenatal anything with my daughter. She didn't see one doctor. I drank my whole entire pregnancy with her. And I go over there and I'm drinking and I'm staying with Tom and Elizabeth, and I go into labor with my daughter. And I go to the University of Indiana Hospital. And my daughter's born, and when you give a kid up for adoption, they come and they throw a black tarp over you so that you won't be able to see the kid. And so I'm intoxicated and I'm giving birth to my daughter. And she comes out, and they get her, and they take her to nursery, and they take me to medical. And I'm laying over in medical, and I'm crying, and I'm thinking to myself, what's wrong with me? I can't even raise a child. Can I get a Kleenex before I electrocute myself? Thank you. So, I'm talking to my sister this whole time because she's scared to death because I haven't been to the doctor. She knows I'm over in Bloomington. And Tom and Elizabeth, I talked Elizabeth into bringing me alcohol over to the hospital after I have my daughter. And I'm in the hospital and I'm drinking alcohol, and the phone rings, and it's my mother. And she said, Angela, please don't give that little girl up. Please bring her home. We'll take care of it. Thank you. Dang. I know I'm crying, but come on, Chris. I'm not going to let go of my whole 4-step, okay? So my mother said, please don't give her up. Bring her home and we'll take care of her. And so I talked to the social worker, and the next day Whitney and I left the hospital and on the Greyhound. We got down to Cincinnati to the Greyhound bus station, and my daddy was there. And he comes into the building, and he walks up to me, and I was getting ready to give him a hug, and he took my little girl out of my hands, and he said, I got her, Angie. I said, Daddy, what am I supposed to do? He said, I don't know what you're supposed to do, but she don't deserve this. And he drove off with my little girl, and I walked up to the bar, and I drank like I'd never drank before. And by this time, I'm living on the banks of the Ohio River in a little boarding house for women. And I'm up at the bar drinking, and I go up to, I met some guy, and I'm talking to him, and he asked me if I wanted to go and do other substances with him. And I'm drunk. I said, yeah. And he ends up shooting ice water in my veins. And I leave his place, and it's about maybe 12 or 13 blocks to the boarding house. And I'm drunk, and I got ice water flowing through my veins, and I'm feeling like I'm about to die. And I'm saying to God,
I just don't want to die like this. And every step I take, I'm feeling like it's my last. But I'm from a family of Baptist ministers, and if I didn't know anything else, I knew to call on the name of God. If I didn't know anything else. And every step I took, I just said, God, please, just don't let me die like this. I don't want to leave this on my mother, and I don't want to leave this on my father. And I don't want to leave it on my children. Just don't let me die like this. And I made it down to that boarding house, and when I walked into the front door of that boarding house, it was a little blonde white woman standing there, and it was as if everything stood still, y'all. She opened up that door for me, and she looked me dead in my face, and she said, honey, you do not have to keep living like this. And I said, I'm sick, and I need you to help me. I had never seen this woman before in my life. And today I know that she was my angel. And she went up to my room in that boarding house, and she put a wet rag on my forehead, and she began to tell me about her drinking. And she didn't tell me how much she drank. She didn't even tell me what she drank. But today, as I go through the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, when I read Working with Others, I knew that she did exactly what she was supposed to do. She asked me if I would go someplace with her. And she took me to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. When I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, there wasn't a lot of African American people in AA. Well, kind of like tonight. I see a couple of y'all. How you doing? Power to the people. Keep coming back. It works if you're working. And so we walk up, and she says this is a clubhouse. And we pull up, and it's about 200 Harleys parked out in the front. And it's all these white people with white cups. And I said, well, I guess it's going to be an all-right party. And we're walking up the walk, and all these old white men are reaching out their hands. Hey, I'm Wino Bob. I'm Big Book Bill. I'm 12 Tom. And I said, well, they got some interesting nicknames. So I'm going up the steps, and all of a sudden this big biker guy grabs me. He goes, welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Squirrel. And I was like, Squirrel, man, you might have put me down, bruh. You know, because where I came from, that we wasn't rolling like that. We definitely wasn't rolling like that with biker dudes. And then it clicked in my head, Alcoholics Anonymous. I was like, you are in Alcoholics Anonymous. You have hit an all-time low. You are at Alcoholics Anonymous. So then she was like, gonna be in the room. And then I see a picture of like Dr. Bob and Bill W. And I was looking at them, and I said, oh my word. So then she goes, we're going to sit in here because some guy's going to come in and tell his story. So then they come in, and I'm looking at the steps, and I'm like, what in the world? And so she sits us on the right-hand side of the room. So we're at 405 Oak Street. So I was sitting like all the way to, like literally on the windowsill. Because this was scary. And so all of a sudden they read all this information, and then this older white dude gets up and he starts telling all of his business. And I was sitting there thinking, what is this white man doing? Why is he up here telling all his business like this? And then everybody would bust out laughing. I said, and then everybody like prayed, and, oh, they passed the fast. I said, oh, here we go. I've been in enough Baptist churches to know what this is. And then everybody got up and prayed. And I said, oh my God, they're hypocrites too. And then she said, well, it's traditional that after we do this, then we go thank the speaker. I said, good, because I got a couple things I want to say to him. And so I get up there and he goes, welcome to AA, sugar darling. That's what he said, sugar darling. I was like, sugar darling? I was like, listen, brother, your buddies, they are laughing at you. Do you know that? I said, they are laughing at you. All that stuff you're talking about, how you beat your wife and all that stuff, and you ain't had a drink today, they laughing at you. And he goes, oh, sugar darling, you just keep coming back. I said, oh no, you keep coming back. I don't know what this organization is, but you keep coming back, okay? And who are these people on the wall? Listen, they are our co-founders. Bill W. and Billy Bob Thornton or whoever. And I was like, well, I'm okay. Well, thank you very much for the information. So I stayed around AA because it wasn't like I had, a huge social schedule or anything. And so I stayed around, and I'm known as the angry black woman, and everything was cut up because I was black. And if I was at the coffee bar and you didn't get my coffee when as quickly as I thought you should, I would be like, it's because I'm black, ain't it? That's why I can't get my black coffee. Why I gotta drink my black coffee out of a white cup? Why can't I get it out of a black cup? And my sponsor, she was from England, right? She goes, really, would you be quiet? And I'd be like, oh, you know what? By the way, while we're on this subject, you probably need to be a little bit nicer to me with civil rights and slavery and all. And she goes, oh, really? Yeah. She goes, really? Who do you know personally that was a slave? And I was like, well, I don't know nobody personally. I don't know nobody personally that was a slave. And she goes, well, until you do, we won't be having this conversation. And I was like, okay, I see where y'all coming from. It's still the same. It's still the same. It's all good. So I stayed around AA for a little while. About this time, I don't mean no disrespect, this is just the way it was. Crack started coming into Alcoholics Anonymous. I know it didn't happen here in Tampa, but in Cincinnati, Ohio, it happened. And they started coming in, coming into AA. It was horrible. They started coming in, everybody skinny. Crack, crack, crack. So I'm like, hey, we are not having that happening here. This is Alcoholics Anonymous. This is all we deal with, is alcohol. Shh. You can come here, just sit back there, don't say anything. Maybe they'll come up with a Crackaholics Anonymous, but right now, you are in Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm telling you this for a reason. And since you don't know what you're doing, I'll sponsor all of it. So I'm back at the back of the room reading the big book out loud as I could. Oh, I treated them horribly. Horribly. In the name of protecting Alcoholics Anonymous. In the name of protecting Alcoholics Anonymous. But really what I was doing was I was harming God's children. Because see, I came in, this is what I forgot. See, I came in clueless as to what I was. And thank God for the old timers that shared with me what singleness of purpose was, rather than telling me I didn't belong here. They explained to me what it was.
Because I was an addict, because all I could see was the last couple of, you know what I mean, what brought me down. Nobody told me about, let's look at the whole picture. And I dogged them. So I ended up leaving Alcoholics Anonymous. Because one day I was sitting around with a cloud on the horizon. Suddenly the thought crossed my mind, you know what? Y'all been sitting around talking about God using you for an instrument. I think God using me for an instrument too. And I think he want me to go out and find some black people and bring them into Alcoholics Anonymous. So one day, I said, surely I've been coming here this long telling them that I was here, that surely you would want to know if I was leaving. So I went to the Wednesday night meeting. They said, any AA related announcements? I said, thank you very much for the real big book, but I'm going to leave on up out of here, and thank you for everything. I appreciate it, and I hope y'all know alcohol is bad for you, and I'll be going. You know how sensitive old timers are. Once they say, well, get out of here then. There's people trying to stay sober. We'll see if you make it back. I said, this old time, I won't need to come back. I'm cool. So I leave. I said, the first black person I see drunk, I'm going to carry the message of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I go down, I catch the number 43 bus. I get on the bus, a brother gets on drunk. Bingo! I slide up next to him on the bus. I said, my brother, you been drinking? He said, yeah, I had a little something. I said, you know, you might be an alcoholic. So he started cussing me out on the bus. I told him, I said, you know, the people at the AA Club told me you would probably react like this to my information. So I opened up my book to chapter 5, and I stood up on the aisle of that bus. And I told him, I said, my brother, you may only be able to receive it the way I can give it to you. So I'm going to give it to you this way. I told you I'm from a family of Baptist ministers. So I opened that chapter up and I said, rarely! Did you hear what I said? I said, rarely have we seen a person dead who was thoroughly class. Those who do not recover are those who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. The bus driver said, oh, hell no. He said, you got to get off this bus. I said, you, oh, Mr. Bus Driver, are an alcoholic too. And I went down to the bar where I knew it was some black alcoholics at. And I walked into the bar and they was in the back on the dance floor dancing, but I knew they was in pain because y'all had told me about the mask that we all wear. And I went back there and I snatched that plug out the jukebox and I said, black drunks, they got a place for you. It's called the AA Club. They said, girl, if you don't plug that jukebox in, we'll kill you. I said, you know, the people at the AA Club told me that you would probably react like this with my information. So I'm going to give it to you the only way that you can get it. So I opened up that book to chapter 5. I said, rarely! Did you hear what I said? I said, rarely have we seen a person dead who was thoroughly followed up. Those who do not recover are those who are constitutionally incapable. And the bar owner said, get out. You get out of here right now. I'm trying to make money. So I go out the door. He locks it behind me. I stand on the other side of the bar door reading the big book to the passerbys when suddenly the thought crossed my mind. Oh no. There's got to be an Al-Anon. Got to be. What do you think's going to happen next, Marge? You think she'll have another drink? Suddenly my thought crossed my mind. Surely one drink won't hurt me. Went in, knocked on the door, they let me back in. I went up to the bartender. Yeah, just have one shot. Threw that shot back. 45 minutes later, I'm in the crack house. Well, that wasn't what I did. I'm an alcoholic. I'm just telling you this to tell you this, that anytime I stand in judgment of one of God's kids, that I just wrote the meal ticket for me to experience it on some level in my life. And I showed back up to Alcoholics Anonymous, you guys, June the 20th, 1991. And when I showed back up, my hair was matted to my head. I had been sleeping outside. My hands were so swollen. My stomach was protruded. My skin was 3 times darker than it is now. My lips were black. I was nasty.
I was nasty. And with all the shame and guilt I walked up to that clubhouse and I walked in. And that same old timer, when I left that Wednesday night, was in that coffee bar. And when I walked in, he looked at me and he said, "Angie, you gonna die." And I said, "I know. And I need you to help me, please." And he reached up on that shelf and he got that big book and he said, "I want you to go out at that front door and I want you to shake people's hands." I said, "Bob, look at me. Please don't make me go out there." You go out there and you reach out and you say your name is Angie, you're an alcoholic. And with all the shame and guilt, I went to that front door and I reached my hand out and I said, "Hi, my name is Angie, I'm an alcoholic." And some people shook my hand, and based on the way that I looked, many people snatched away from me. Based on the way that I looked. But you know what? Based on the way that I looked, man, I wanted to be sober more than anything. We can't get too good in here where we start judging people based on the way that they look. Because see, they could be your next Tampa Bay Fall Roundup speaker. I started going to meetings and I didn't have any. See, I'm the wrong person to talk to. If you try to get sober, you say you can't get sober because you don't have nowhere to live. I didn't have nowhere to live. I had nowhere to go. Man, I was at that clubhouse from the time it opened until the time it closed. And many days I slept on that bench. I wasn't leaving the premises. I wasn't leaving. And people, they saw my willingness. And they began to say, "Come on, Angie, you can sleep on my couch. You can sleep on my couch." People invited me into their homes. I got me a sponsor. And I began to go on. They started taking me to conferences, man. I was so glad to go to a conference. Sometimes that was like the weekend. That was the longest time I knew where I was going to be staying for days, man. You know what I mean? When I would go to them conferences, I knew that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I knew where I was going to be living. I'm the wrong person to talk to. If you think that you can't stay sober because you don't have a job. I didn't have a job. And I stayed sober. I stayed at that clubhouse and I went to meetings. And people started taking me to institution meetings with them. And I couldn't read. I couldn't do any of that stuff. But I ended up getting a job. I started volunteering because I didn't have anything else to do. And my criminal record was so bad I couldn't get a job, but I ended up getting a job at the treatment center that I volunteered at. They said, "We'll hire you." And I started working there. And at 40 years old, I got my first apartment ever in my life, man. Ever. With my name on the mailbox. I couldn't wait to get somebody, a significant other, so I could put their ass out. So I started working for this one place, and I had lied and told them that I had a high school diploma, and I did have one, but I made it in prison. And I told my sponsor that it was in my personnel file, and she told me I had to tell my boss that it was fake, that I had lied. And I went to my boss and I told him, I said, "I got a diploma in my personnel file, but it's fake." And he went and got my personnel file and pulled it out, and he held it up and he said, "You good." He said, "But you have to have a real one to work here." And I said, "You gonna fire me?"
He said, no, I'm going to give you 6 months to get it. And I was in my very first apartment watching TV one night. And Sally Struthers came on the TV and she goes, you too can get your high school diploma on TV.
So I sent the money in, and they sent me a science book, and all these people from AA met at my house, and they helped me, man. And thank God for the reading books, the textbook meetings. Thank God for the 5:30 big book meeting, because I didn't know how to read. And they were patient with me. They were patient with me. They were patient. As I tried to learn how to say those words, they were patient with me. Thank God for the big book meeting and the 12-12 meeting, and those people came over to my house and they taught me science, and they taught me math, and they taught me English. And I then signed up for the equivalency of a high school diploma, and I got a perfect score. And so then I went up to the University of Cincinnati. I said, I want to go to college. And it wasn't a matter of self-esteem for me. It was that I never believed I could do it. And I said, I want to go to college. And they said, well, what do you want to do? I said, I don't know. This has never been an issue. And about this time, they had incorporated the School of Addiction Studies into the University of Cincinnati, and I now have my liberal arts and social sciences in addiction studies from the University of Cincinnati. It may not be a big deal for you, but it's a big deal to me. Let me tell you about my daughter. My daughter is now 24 years old, and she is attending Louisiana State University. She's working on her master's now, and she is doing extremely well. Not by anything that I have done, because I was asked to step out of her and my son's life when I was 3 years sober. And that was the hardest thing for me to do. But I did it. You know why? Because there was no way I could take care of her. And I did that. But I'm a mother, and I love my kids. And sometimes I watch them play soccer way over in the corner of the field. But I had to see her. But I was able to make my amends to her. And I was happy about that. And my son, who is 27, is now doing more time in the penitentiary than he has been alive. And thank God for the people that take Alcoholics Anonymous into the penitentiary, because he's a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'll be forever grateful for that. So I just keep doing the deal, you guys. I love Alcoholics Anonymous, and you know, I'm not a big book thumper. You know, I work the steps and I incorporate them into my life, and you know, I love the traditions and I incorporate them into my life. And I can tell you that I am happy, joyous, and free. And I just love this deal. And I know that I love what the gentleman said last night, that if you turn anything over in my house, anything over in my life, it says property of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'll be forever grateful for that. But a long time ago, when I was back home, my grandmother, she used to always hum this song. And I never knew the meaning of it until in 2005 I got asked to be one of the opening speakers at the International Convention in Toronto. And I was walking up the steps, these high platform steps. And I remember thinking to myself, how do you go from sleeping on the sidewalks and sleeping on benches, and how do you go from there to getting ready to walk out onto a platform to speak to all these alcoholics? How does that happen? Well, there's one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now, and I'd like to close with this, if you don't mind. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. See, I was lost, ooh, but now I'm found. I was blind, but now I see. Thank you, Florida.